the, what's that, number 6. So 6, we're using compression, so there's 2 different ways. Of course, I showed you the sponge, and then now I'm showing you with the thumbs. But the reason why we compress is so that you don't get these cracks, like we just told you guys. And then, so molecules in the clay they're actually, essentially, they're all kind of like lined up, and you want them to kind of like get confused, and you want them to latch together, okay? So when something is like this, do you think they're gonna pull apart easier? Yes. But then if they're like this, they're molecules, and now you're compressing, and you're pushing those molecules together, they start locking, and they form a seal. So something that's like this is not gonna end up pulling apart. Here, the molecules are lined up, and you get the space where it's equally gonna separate, okay? So make sure your hands are wet. And now, of course, as you guys know, I like to keep my back clean. I'm gonna find my center, my thumbs. So hug the outside of your form, find the center. And what you're gonna do is just gonna take your thumbs and compress it down into the bottom of your vessel. And you're gonna do that back and forth about 3 or 4 times. A good way to see that you're actually doing it is, do you guys see those little lines? Those are reference lines that you are compressing into the clay. All right? So after the compression, what's the next step? Does anybody know? You guys can cheat if you want. Depression, there's no depression. Remember, we never have depression in ceramics. But according to Josh, there's always depression. So next one is gonna be pulling up the wall. So key things here, there's 2 ways that you guys can pull up the wall. If you're doing something small like this, you can actually go ahead and take your pointer finger and your thumb, okay? So your pointer finger's in the center, and you're gonna find the center of your piece of clay, and you're gonna drive it to pretend that it's gonna be a magnet that magnetizes to the thumb. And while I'm holding my sponge, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lightly squeeze upward. If you notice, I'm lightly squeezing my clay upward. And then this is what I call the release at the rim. So what you want to do is just slowly come off, okay? When you create a rim, this is a good example right here. So this rim, if you notice, this rim doesn't have any sharp edges. When something sits on your lip, you want to think about that, okay? You don't want to just have something on there that's going to cut you, or it just doesn't, it feels awkward. This one has a nice general shape, the shape of what your mouth looks like, or it's formed. So when we're pulling up the wall, you want to keep the rim thick. I'm going to go ahead, clean off my bat again. So I'm going to pull this one more time, but now that it's getting taller and my pointer finger and my thumbs aren't going to be that long, what I'm going to do is call the lock of my thumbs, and I'm going to use my longest fingers, which are my middle fingers. So start from the center, and there's a magnet that wants to attract again, okay? I want you guys to pay attention to the outside of the wall where my middle finger is. There's gonna be these little lines that you're gonna start seeing. These are called throwing lines. So throwing lines, you want them to be really close together. You want them visible. So if you notice, you see that? So those throwing lines, the closer they are, the more consistent your walls become. What should I turn this into, a bowl or a cup?
A cup.
A cup? Okay. So I'm going to show you guys a trick. So if you notice, it's starting to kind of flare out. Best way to bring it back in is called necking. So I'm going to apply some water. My hands are wet. My hands are actually parallel with the bat. And what I'm going to do is, if you notice, come over here. Can you guys see my thumbs? My thumbs are actually locked together. And I'm slowly necking it and bringing it back in. Okay, so now I have this more cylindrical form. So now I'm going to do my pulling up the wall again. And I still have a lot of clay down here, so I'm going to try to really pull this thin. Okay. So there's a cup. everything starts out as a cylinder, and eventually it becomes the form that you like to work with. Does anybody know the difference between form and shape, like we talked about? Yep, that's right. So right now I have this form, but if I look at it at eye level, I'm going to get more of a rectangular shape. Okay? So right now it's a cylinder. So I'm pretty much done with my throwing of the form.